Very good evening friends, and in this video we are going to demonstrate you the communication between two fragments. So just you saw that I had two fragments, and on those two fragments we had some views. So now this is our main, or this is the fragment 1. So this is the fragment 1 which have one view called as edit text, other view as button. So now in this the root layout is relative layout, and the height is 150 density independent pixels. It has two views. One is edit text with the id as the edit text 1, and other is the button with the id as button 2. Now what is the whole application about that? We will have one view, or you can say the one UI, where two fragments from the main activity will try to communicate with one another. And how do they do that, or how will they achieve this feat, is with the help of the interface. And they will not directly be communicating with one another, but one fragment will pass the value to the main class or the main activity, and then the main activity will pass the value to the other fragment. So this is my fragment 2. Again, it just have the same structure, same features, same views. It has edit text with the id as the edit text 2, and the button with the id button 2. Now this is our fragment 1.java. This is the third video of the fragment series. Now if you are not able to connect with this video, what I'm trying to explain you, then please watch the other two videos, and then you will be very easy and comfortable with this what I'm just trying to explain. So here I try to create the object of edit text. So edit text is edit text, and then button equals button. Okay, now instead of returning this inflator dot inflate, I will try to create the object of the view. So view equals inflator dot inflate. So I make it inflator dot inflate r dot layout dot fragment 1 container, and then the attached root is just false. So edit text is view dot find view by id, and the name, as you remember, it is edit text 1. So this is edit text is initialized. Now same way the button equals view dot find view by id r dot id dot button 1. Okay, so now we'll put the set on click listener on this button. So the button dot set on click listener new view dot on click listener, and inside this on click view we will create the object of char sequence, which will be holding the value passed from the edit text of one fragment. So the char sequence text is edit text dot get string. You can use the string object here also, but for that you have to convert it to dot to string form. So since we are not using that, we'll directly use text and we'll store the value there. Now we need another arrangement. We can call it as the interface. So we need to create one interface inside this class, and with the help of that interface and the function inside that interface, these fragments will be communicating with one another. So the public interface, and then I'm going to name it as fragment 1 listener, because the fragment is 1, the Java class is fragment 1, so the listener should also have the name similar to that. That's why it's fragment 1 listener. Now here I create one function, and that's name is on data 1 sent. It is just like this function will be helping the data to pass from the one fragment to another one. So the void on data sent, and this one is just a way set so that we can categorize that this is in the fragment 1 listener, and this will be receiving the char sequence input, and this input will help to pass to another. So now we create one object for this private object for this fragment 1 listener. So I'll write private because we don't want it to be accessed from outside. So the private fragment one listener, fragment one listener, and then name the object as listener. This is done. Now here inside the onClick method, then with the help of listener dot on data one sent will pass this text object which is of type char sequence. So this is done, and then we can simply return the view from here, and yeah, so this here we are done. So we need to remove this view, so return view. So now the view will be returned. Instead of returning the whole thing, we will return, because finally the return type of this on create view is view. So now here I create one function. This function will help us the data to be fixed into the other fragment. So its name is public void add text. Then you pass the char sequence. You can write text, or since I have already used the word text, I'll use some other language, some other word, not language, sorry. So the edit text dot set text, I will write text. So just let me make it as m text or p text, so that we can differentiate one from another, because already I have created one object named text. Okay, so here the public void add text is created. Now we need to override the on attach function. So the public void on attach, and then one is for detach. So on attach function, this function will help us to attach the listener to the object, because how the application will understand that which object or which interface has been implemented. So to check that, we'll check if context is an instance of fragment one listener. So and the related to that context, if that context is the instance of fragment one listener, then listener equals context, and now we have to typecast it to the type fragment one listener, because listener is the object of type fragment one and the context is the object of type context. It has to be typecasted, else we can return some object, or we can throw some error, dynamic runtime error. So the throw new runtime exception, and then inside that will pass context dot toString, and then we'll append a string so that we can understand that this interface was not implemented properly. So here you write implement fragment one listener first, or whatever, just it help you to recognize in the time when some dynamic error happens during the runtime. So the implement fragment listener first. So here it is done. Now we'll use the on detach function. Like when the job is done, then we need to keep our listener free. So just write listener equals null. So this will set the listener to the null value. Now here we're done. Since both these objects of the interface, fragment classes are having the same kind of feature, instead of going to write the whole thing again, I remove my existing fragment2.java class, and I will simply copy this fragment one and paste it there, because only some names I have to make changes, otherwise the whole context will going to be same. So I just copy this one and fragment one and paste it in the very same folder, and just I'm going to name it as fragment 2. So now the way I have named the views and the functions, I simply make some changes, like instead of 1 I need to make it 2. So the fragment 2 listener, this will also become the fragment 2. Keep the listener as listener because this is just the local for this class. Now the layout also should be fragment 2, and we have to check whether the instance, so this is also on the data sent 2. Okay, then inside this should be the object of the fragment 2 listener. Okay, and then this one also should be fragment 2. So here we are kind of done. Okay, so now no error, no warning, everything looks perfectly fine. Here also just you write fragment 2 listener so that you can understand which listener has not been implemented properly. Now I go into the fragment2.xml file, and then there I try to see is any problem. No. Okay, here I need to make it as edit text 2 because the, and that was edit text 2 is the edit text of the fragment 2, and button 2 is also from same by 2. So this is done. Now one more thing that will go into this main activity class, which is holding those two fragments. So there you see that the objects of the fragment 2 and the fragment 1 are already made, and they have been replaced using the function get support fragment manager. Now I need to implement those fragment 1 and fragment 2 listeners here. So the implement fragment 1 listener comma fragment 2 listener. Then we need to override those two methods, like on data sent, on data 1 sent and the data 2 sent. So I'm just waiting for the this red bulb which help us implement those function. Sometime it comes just after some time. So here after implementing those two functions on data sent 1 and the data sent 2, from the data sent 1 will call the fragment 2, and from the data sent 2 will call the fragment 1, and then our job is done, because we have use this interface only so that this class, which now at present is abstract, because this is implementing two interface listeners, and this fragment 1 listener and the fragment 2 listeners, and that's why this class right now virtually is abstract. So just waiting for that red bulb to appear, and then I can go back and copy the whole name of the function and can call the override return function also. There's no problem with that, but I would like to wait because this simply saves my time. So name of that function, as you remember, here I go into the fragment 2 and see this one on data sent 2. Inside, yes, on this data sent 2, which is the part of the fragment 2 listener and data sent 1. Now I hope, I wish to get my red bulb, please. Oh, wait, it'll come. Just don't wait, don't get excited. When I make videos, I just try to make it short, and then we start becoming longer, so I lose some now comfort. So this is the implement method. Now the red bulb has come, so implement these two functions. This is done. So inside the sent1 function I need to call the fragment 2. So the fragment 2 dot, and the name of that function, as you remember, it was what it was, edit text or add text, sorry, add text. You just seen the third one. So the fragment 2 dot add text, and then you pass this char sequence input. Now you do the same thing here. This is the fragment 2 dot same function add text, and the pass the input. Okay, so let's make correction there, because on the first one it should be fragment, here also is fragment to everywhere. Just try to make sure. Now here we need, inside the fragment 2 we need fragment 1, and inside the fragment 1 fragment 2. So this is done. Now let me run my application, and then you see what we get. So this is the emulator coming here. Now you see these two activities, and then in the first one I pass hi. If you click there, then you see the hi is coming into this edit text. Same way, if I type anything here, I type educrafts, and then if I click here the button below that text, this text will be passed to the first one immediately. Now here it is. Thank you very much. Just subscribe to our channel and have a nice time.